Greetings and welcome back to Pluralsight. My name is Bruce Mackenzie Lowe and you are watching Advanced Troubleshooting Techniques for Windows Server. In this module, we'll talk about remediating hardware crashes. I'll show you what to look for and what BSODs you can expect to see. So, to give you an overview, we'll talk about identifying hardware crashes. I'll show you the different components to watch out for and what remedies to fix the various issues. I'll also talk about types of hardware blue screens of death. Although there's very few actual hardware crashes you'll see, we'll go over the ones that you can expect to see. Then we'll talk about debugging demos. I'll show you a couple crashes, namely how to go about analyzing a stop 9F, which is known as a driver power state failure. We'll also analyze a stop 124, which is a WIA uncorrectable error. We'll then wrap up things with a summary of what you've learned. So, as you may know, in the old days, hardware components were far less reliable than they are today. That being said, hardware does still fail. So I'm going to show you essentially what components to look out for. So the three main hardware components to watch out for are processors. As you may know, all systems used to be uniprocessor systems in the old days. However, now systems come out with multiple processors, multiple cores, and when you enable hyperthreading, you've got twice as many. So, in fact, Windows 2016 supports up to 512 logical processors. So, without many processors, there is an increased probability that one of those processors may fail. Memory, or RAM, is the same. In the old days, 128 meg on a board used to be considered a lot of memory. Now we see 16 or 32 gig on a single DIMM. In fact, Windows 2016 supports 24 terabytes of RAM. That's a lot of DIMMs. And with that many DIMMs, there's again an increased probability that one of them may fail. Finally, you have adapters, controllers, and devices to watch out for. With all the many third-party vendors out there, each providing different adapters, controllers, and devices, this once again increases the chances of failure. So let's go ahead and talk about failing processors. Now, if you experience multiple random crashes that are very erratic with different stop codes, that's indicative of a CPU or processor problem. Another good clue is that if the crashes all occur on the same processor. As you may know, the debugger will reveal which is the crash processor, so watch out for multiple crashes all coinciding on the same processor, or even the same group of processors, as now we have a processor can support multiple cores. So one of the remedies to go ahead and ensure is that all your CPU chip models are the same. As you may know, they may have different frequencies, so we want to make sure that they're all the same type of CPU chip. Same thing with the BIOS. We want to ensure that the BIOS is updated to the latest available version. This is especially important whenever you upgrade the operating system. You want to always follow up with upgrading the BIOS, or you can get various erratic crashes. So bad memory or RAM is another area that we have to watch out for. These are typically revealed in a crash as a picked bit or a 1-bit difference. For example, if you had a data structure that contained the binary code 0111 and all of a sudden that leading 0 got turned into a 1 and the result was 111, well, that's a picked bit and it could very well result in a crash. You can also see bad memory problems during what's known as a in-page read error on paging activity. When the kernel needs a page, it needs to read it from memory right away. If it doesn't, you get an in-page read error and the system will crash. So the remedies here, we want to ensure that we all have the same memory DIMMs, that they're the same size typically, and that they are the same frequency, etc. So we can also use a memory exerciser to test the memory to ensure that it is all functioning properly. Finally, we have failing adapters, controllers, and devices. There's various hardware failures that you can experience here, such as adapter power failures, maybe an inaccessible boot device, or maybe page read errors or bad blocks on the disk. This is specifically bad if you have a page file out there. If you encounter a read error on a bad block, you can typically crash a system. So one thing that you may want to do to remedy in the case of a bad block is to utilize the checkdisk/f command to repair any volumes with bad blocks.